We kickstart today morning with talent opening, workforce upskilling, and our speaker is none other than Lee Lim Teo, Chairman Singapore Accenture. Let's welcome her.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am thrilled to have this opportunity to offer some opening remarks for the Talent Summit. Isn't it so appropriate for this topic to be the focus for the closing day of this year's FinTech Festival? Because I would submit that for all of what has been discussed over the past 4 days, the challenges, the pursuit of resilience, and the return to growth, innovation, disruption, and transformation, and all the impacts and ambitions that have been articulated, none of these will materialize without us having the talent to do it with. And regardless of whether we are business or technical, startups or MNCs, our ability to harness the full power and potential of the talent we have must sometimes feel like a moving target. After all, I'm sure that inevitably on this topic, there's sometimes suggestions that, with a sigh, that each generation is so different from the preceding one. After all, at Accenture today in Singapore, we are 80% millennials. And you know what? I couldn't resist, but on my personal page in our intranet, I could click on the button and I saw that 99.81% of Accenture personnel around the world joined after I did, which is 500,000 of the 501,000 people globally. Well, the best way to be sure that we understand what this is all about is to ask the questions. So let me see your thoughts for the day with highlights from what we had concluded recently in a research piece that we collaborated with Marriott on. And the research involved 3,200 senior executives, both HR and C-suite business, and about 15,600 workers from across 15 industries and 10 countries. And yes, Singapore was one of those countries. About 7 to 8% of the respondents came from Singapore. And this is considered to be the most comprehensive, first of its kind research. And we published it in a report called Care to Do Better. The key headline from this research is that when employers consider the holistic well-being of employees in meeting 6 fundamental human needs through work, they build a level of trust which unlocks the full potential of each employee and leaves both the people and the business net better off. These 6 dimensions make up what we now call the net better off framework. And as I list them out, there is of course a risk that we may consider some of them as a bit motherhood, but I ask that we resist that thought and to try to interpret each factor in the context of our present day challenges. And to facilitate this, I will decide, as I describe each factor, I will probably suggest some questions that we may want to ask. The 6 dimensions of our net better off framework are, number 1, financial. Being financially secure without undue economic stress or worry, and having equitable opportunities for future stability. And I guess the question that we want to ask is, do our rewards and benefits packages meet the evolving needs of our people in times of crisis, as they may have in times of abundance? Number 2, physical. Being in good physical health and equipped to take on the normal daily stresses. The question, how do we take our physical environments beyond the workplace, as people today may be working from home? Are we willing to deal with new processes to set up our offices to be ready for re-entry to the workplace, to provide for safety and well-being? Third factor being emotional, and this translates to feeling positive and maintaining mental wellness. And the question is, how do we care for our people and sense that they are indeed in need, or if they're well, when we cannot bump into them in corridors? What are the stresses of balancing work-life balance when work and life happen concurrently in the same space? And how do we support the ongoing mental resilience of our people when the potential trauma from the crisis may have lasting effects? Relational, feeling a strong sense of belonging and inclusion, having many strong personal relationships. So how do we create a sense of belonging in virtual teams? How do we ensure that every voice is heard through the organization? Fifth, purpose. Probably this is the easiest to understand, but it's a feeling that one makes a positive difference in the world and that life has meaning and a greater sense of purpose beyond oneself. How does our purpose evolve to meet the enlightened workforce and customer? How does our purpose come to life in our communities? And you know what? The last one is my favorite, because it's probably never been presented in this way, and that is employable. Having marketable, on-demand, in-demand capabilities and skills to obtain good jobs and advance in a career. And the question is, how will the skills I'm developing now qualify me to get a better job or role in the future? And this may be the most difficult one to embrace, since it suggests that making employees more marketable with the prospect of losing them is a good thing. Let me share with you an example of what we have done for ourselves as a firm on this front. Over the last 2 years, we have run an initiative we call Specialization at Scale for about 350,000 people around the world. In the process, we reviewed and refined our definitions of 350 specializations, with each specialization being made up of more than one skill. Now, jobs and roles may change, but your skills do not. Some new roles may require existing skills to be recombined, or selective reskilling in adjacent areas. Having the anatomy of specialties in terms of the bill of material skills allows us to pivot to new specialties when they are required. And the best metaphor I can think of is Lego. And we think of the collective capabilities that a person has as being the collection of Lego blocks. And one can reconfigure Lego bricks to be used to build different things. And beyond that, we apply AI to calibrate the proficiency levels of each person in the specialties, and thereby giving each individual a sense of a development plan. Now, that all deals with what you call the hard skills or technical skills. But you know what? Soft skills was also something essential for us to review. Our industry has changed. We need to deliver both large-scale, complex systems that take months and years to design and build, and we need now to have innovative experiments and digital capabilities that take days and weeks. Industry boundaries have blurred. For example, different services offered previously by banks are now segmented and delivered and are the pursuits of non-banks. The notion that there is a best practice in a particular industry is perhaps questionable as new business models evolve. So we did two things. Firstly, we designed a new methodology which integrated all the different parts of Accenture, from technology to digital to operations to strategy. And we defined 5 new skills, which include things like design thinking, data fluency, agile methods, and storytelling, amongst the 5. We also talked and taught 7 new ways of working, which involve a drive for inclusion of innovation, the mindset of designing for experience and people, and to be able to collaborate and to co-create, because it's about working across the ecosystem. Also, to ensure that there is this notion of iterations, so that every iteration delivers improved capability. And if you think about the technical and soft skills, what is also very critical is leaders who are able to lead in this new way. And so we defined something which we call the leadership DNA, behaviors, mindsets, and skills that are required to lead, and which we measure people on and assess people on for career progression. And some of these things include things like innovation. To what extent do we bring innovation into each engagement that we execute? The ability to advocate an inspiring vision. The propensity and the comfort to collaborate across the ecosystem. The ability to execute with agility. And to personalize it in what we call a truly human way. So returning to our conversation on the net better off proposition, our research found that 64% of a person's potential is derived from these capabilities, as opposed to 9% from the more traditional capabilities that we might associate with competencies and potentials, such as industry or tenure. So that's about the reskilling of our people. And so let me pivot back to our conversation around the net better off framework. Our research doesn't stop there. These are the 6, employability being something I think everyone needs to think about. But there are 2 questions which I'm sure every business person wants to know. Number 1, how do we connect what is better for our people with what is better off for the business? Because after all, there needs to be a commercial lens of the investments that we take. In the report, we name 5 capabilities or practices that, when taken together, is something that will impact and deliver benefits not just for the organization, but for the individuals. And so you have a balance of what that is. And these are detailed in our report. The second question we sought to answer as well, again in greater detail, is the question of whether employees and the C-suite are aligned in terms of who is responsible for achieving these results of net better off for our employees. So I would urge you to perhaps download the report from the website. It's called Care to Do Better. And alternatively, to look at my post on my LinkedIn profile, because that's where it is included. Now, in conclusion, these are the thoughts that we offer, is that eventually the current crisis will pass and people will choose who to work for and where to do business. And we believe that organizations that answer the call to leave their people net better off will win on the people front and in business. I hope that I've left you with some thoughts to mull over as you pursue the rest of the day. And I wish you every success and a very fulfilling day ahead.